Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from Commercial East 302, and it says, am I the arsehole for refusing to let my mother-in-law hold my baby after she told my husband to get a paternity test? I, 28 female, gave birth to my first child, a beautiful baby girl 3 weeks ago. My husband, 30 male, and I have been over the moon, but his mother has been causing non-stop drama. She never liked me. From the start, she made snide comments about how I trapped her son, even though we've been happily married for 4 years. When I got pregnant, she constantly joked about how the baby might not be his. I brushed it off as her usual passive-aggressive behavior, until I found out she took it way further. 2 days after I gave birth, my husband got a text from his mum saying, "You should get a DNA test. You never know these days." I was devastated when I saw it. My husband was furious and told her off, saying he had zero doubts about me and that her comment was disgusting. She tried to backtrack, saying she was just looking out for him. Now she wants to come over and meet the baby, but I told my husband that she will not be holding our daughter. If she wants to question whether my child is even a grandchild, then she doesn't get the privilege of bonding with her. My husband understands why I'm upset, but he thinks we should let her come, just once, so she doesn't play the victim with the rest of the family. Now she's crying to everyone, saying I'm keeping her granddaughter from her, and that I'm punishing her over a harmless question. Some family members think I'm being dramatic and should be the bigger person. But why should I let someone who disrespected me and hold my child like nothing happened? Am I the arsehole for refusing to let her hold my baby? In the comments, Bored in the House says, not the arsehole. She'll find ways to play the victim, even if you've not done anything wrong, so might as well set your boundaries. Also, just to add, that's not a harmless question at all. She's indirectly accusing you of cheating and asking her son not to trust you. Unless she had extremely valid reasons, which she doesn't in this case. That's just so disrespectful. Butterfly says, if it's such a harmless question, make a big deal of him asking to get a DNA test to see who the father is. Lou says, how about we do get a DNA test done? We let everyone know we're doing this because she feels it's necessary, so she is sure the baby is yours. We also let everyone know when it comes back as yours, your mum will be permanently banned from seeing our child or me. Or at least until your mum provides a DNA test proving that you are your dad's son. This is me being the bigger person. Commercial East says that's a genius idea. If she's so concerned about proving family ties, let's take it all the way. I've got a question, says. Ask her if she's projecting, then suggest your husband and any siblings to take a paternity test if he is actually his father's. Turn the tables on her. Happy says, I'm worried she used the opportunity of holding and bonding with a baby to steal a DNA sample. I mean, babies do drool on everything. Milfy Macca says, that's what my mother-in-law did. She offered to watch my baby while I rested. Still in the hospital after a 56-hour labor and hubby had gone home to sleep. She did a cheek swab on my baby while I was asleep. Furious is an understatement. Whoa. And like the comment said in this situation, it wasn't a harmless question, it was an accusation disguised as concern. And the fact that she's been making these, air quotes, jokes throughout your pregnancy shows this isn't a one-off comment, but, constant or a pattern of disrespect. And at first I was like, props to your husband for immediately shutting her down, but I disagree with the just once compromise because, it's still giving in to her manipulation. If she faces like zero consequences now, what boundaries is she going to cross next? And as always, it's easy for the family members to call you dramatic when they're not the ones who's been accused of cheating right after giving birth. Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation. But some point later, Opie did come in with the update and says, well, I wish I could say things got better. But mother-in-law made sure that didn't happen. After my husband told her off, I thought she'd at least try to apologize. But instead, she doubled down. She started calling my husband, telling him I was turning him against his own mother, and I was overreacting to a simple question. She even pulled the classic victim act, crying to the rest of the family about how I was keeping her grandbaby from her. Then things took a ridiculous turn. I found out from my sister-in-law that mother-in-law was actually trying to get a DNA test done behind our backs. Apparently, she was hoping to get a strand of my baby's hair or some spit to confirm the truth. When my sister-in-law told me, I was absolutely done. I told my husband that until she apologizes, not a fake "I'm sorry you're mad" apology, but a real one, she's not welcome around me or my daughter. Thankfully, my husband backed me up 100%. He told his mother that if she can't respect his wife and child, then she doesn't deserve to be a part of our lives. Mother-in-law lost it. She went full drama mode, telling everyone I was tearing the family apart and that she might never recover from this heartbreak. At this point, I don't even care. She disrespected me. She disrespected my marriage, and she disrespected my child. Actions have consequences. So yeah, mother-in-law hasn't met the baby, and unless she does some serious apologizing and self-reflection, she won't be anytime soon. Am I the arsehole? Mama Kim says, win stupid games, get stupid prizes. She fucked around and found out. Glad hubby is behind you 100%. Dramatic says, I'm so very sorry. How fucked up is this? Not only an apology, mum also needs a psychiatric workup. Bitch Girl says, she believes the child isn't her granddaughter, so she has no cause for heartbreak. No problem, nothing to see here. Opie says, exactly. If she's convinced the baby isn't her granddaughter, then why is she playing the victim now? She should be relieved that she doesn't have to worry about a child she doesn't even consider family. It's mad how people like that just refuse to apologize. They'd rather fuck everything up, go full nuclear, and try to manipulate everyone else around them, rather than just admit their fault. But what do you guys make of this situation? What would you do if you was in OP's position? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now our next story comes from Snowbirds-Go-Home from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. And it says, am I the arsehole for being upset that my husband of 18 years left me alone at the hospital when I was bleeding internally? I'm really not happy with how things went down last weekend, so I thought I'd scream into the void and see if the void screams back. I don't have any friends I could talk to about this. I, 43 female, have severe abdominal pain in the lower right side of my abdomen on a Saturday night. So bad that I thought about going to ER. But I'm slightly phobic about hospitals and ER visits are expensive, so I didn't. It ended up feeling somewhat better by the next morning. So I put it out of my mind and was just careful, thinking I had pulled a muscle or something. 2 days later, I found massive purple bruises on my stomach, very near where the random pain had been and still was, which of course freaked me the fuck out. I first went to my obgyn in case my IUD had slipped and perforated something, but my IUD was fine, and no ovarian cyst/rupturing going on. She sent me to my primary care. After tons of poking and prodding, painfully I might add, she sent me to the ER, even going so far to call the head nurse in the ER to tell them I was coming and what my symptoms were. Her thought was that it was appendicitis, even though I had no nausea or other symptoms of that. Long story short, after scans, labs, and testing was done, I have a hematoma on the rectal sheath, rip in the abdominal wall outside of the colon, and the bruises were caused by bleeding internally. I went to ER about 11:30 noon on Friday, and spent the next 10-ish hours there before a room opened up for me, and I was admitted. They weren't sure if I was going to need surgery to correct it, and no one had any idea what caused this, so the concern of more/other internal bleeding was big. My husband, 49 male, was at work at the time. My husband picked up my 7-year-old from school at 3 p.m. and went home. His mum is retired, alone. Husband passed in April 2024 and loves to spend time with the kids. I also have a 23 female, but he didn't ask her to pick up our son or watch him so my husband could sit with me. He waited until 7:30 p.m. to bring me food in the ER. I hadn't eaten all day because I was fasting to do blood work at my primary care appointment. Stayed with me for about 30 minutes and went home again. At that point, I wasn't sure if I needed surgery, so I couldn't eat or drink anything after midnight. The next day, I didn't see him until after my food or drink intake was permitted again, so about 11:30 a.m. or so, my hospital lunch was delivered about 20 minutes after he arrived, and he left after my doctor gave his update. He missed the oncologist and hematologist though. I had to deal with that terrifying prospect alone. My mum died of leukemia when I was 15. He wasn't very happy with the doctor, which I totally get. The doctor was really off-putting and borderline unprofessional, asking if my husband hit me to both of us in the same room, after being asked this exact question at least 20 times by different hospital staff prior to this. I was even asked if there was anyone I wanted to restrict from the hospital and said no. But he kept harping on it and was visibly angry. But he insisted he wasn't mad at me. I get that it was offensive, but I didn't understand why that took precedence over what was going on with my health and mental well-being. This was my first time being a patient in a hospital, besides when my 2 kids were born, and my prior experience with hospitals was anything but pleasant. Between my mum's cancer and daughter's medical issues from birth into age 12, I spent way too much time there already. He kept bringing the doctor's comment up, then complained that the chaplain came by after me saying that I didn't want the chaplain. I'm pagan. Freaked him out a bit when he came by, but that's another story. Then got mad about the amount of hospital was charging the insurance company. Not what they were charging us, what they charged the insurance. I felt the whole time I was in there, all he did was act upset and angry, though he kept saying he wasn't mad at me. I felt like it was all about him and his feelings. I finally got to drive myself home from the hospital about 3:30 p.m. on Monday. So it was almost 4 days in the hospital. My husband came 3 of the 4 days and stayed about 20 to 30 minutes each day. He's off weekends, by the way, and missed every doctor except that one. When I got home, I got a shower to wash off the stink of disinfectant, and then it was straight back to normal, as though I'd never been gone. My son gave me a hug, then he ran off. Fine, he's 7. My husband played video games until dinner, then ate and helped with some of the dishes. There was no "let me do that, you're not supposed to be exerting yourself," or "sit down, I'll take care of dinner, you just got out of the hospital." Nothing. I'm worried about my future. Is this a picture I want my life to be like in the future? Cancer is rampant in both sides of my family, all kinds, so I guess that means I'll be doing chemo alone, and probably going to die alone in a hospital bed at some point. I'm trying to move forward, but I also feel some resentment towards him. Whatever happened to in sickness and in health? I can't help but feel let down by him. I was all alone in a scary place, not knowing what was wrong or what was going to happen to me. And he couldn't bother to come and sit with me, keep me company, help stop my freakouts or support me. Not once did he tell me, "It's okay, you'll be okay, we'll get through this." Instead, it seemed like it was all about his frustrations and feelings. So now I'm conflicted. Maybe I was being selfish. It's not like he could actually do anything to help me there, and he was with our son. But where do you draw the line in between selfishness and need for help? Am I the arsehole for wanting my husband to be more supportive during my time in the hospital? In the same post, Opie updated and said, "Wow, I really didn't think I'd get more than a couple of comments, but I really appreciate everyone who took the time to comment. I'm going to try and reply to some comments tomorrow because I admit I was overwhelmed by the amount of responses and I was also trying to work at the same time. I really appreciate all the feedback, even those who called me an arsehole, because many of you were right. I should have been more clear about my needs and feelings. Shout out to Threshold Breeder, which is a user, for helping me with verbiage to use when I talk with my husband. I've worked call centers all my life and know the difference between I statements and you statements, but in the moment and personal life, it's hard. Edit to clarify a few points that keep coming up. One, I saw the surgeon Friday afternoon and he restricted my food/drink starting at midnight that night and lasting until I got my second CT scan the next day, around mid-morning, to confirm my hematoma wasn't seeping or getting bigger. 2, no, I didn't specifically ask him to stay. And yes, that's my bad. I was in a lot of pain and I didn't want to deal with him rolling his eyes at me and saying, "Fine, I guess I'll stay," in an irritated and put out tone. Because then I wouldn't have wanted him to stay. He would have just had a negative attitude that I didn't want to deal with at the time. Yes, he's done this before with other things, just nothing as serious. 3, my daughter is 23, but has some development delays and doesn't pick up on cues very well. I know I'm making some excuses for her, but she was the last one to see her grandpa in the hospital before he passed, and it really impacted her. Last year we lost my dad, my husband's stepdad, and her dog, who she loved and doted on like a kid. She's petrified of loss at this point, and I'm her rock. I also have to admit, I'm not used to leaning on kids in any way. 4, my husband did not, nor has he ever hit me. I didn't fall. have an accident, or any physical trauma. I totally get why my doctors asked me about the abuse, though I didn't realize until today that asking in front of the potential abuser was another tactic to find out the truth. I do get that. 5. Yes, this is a pattern. He repeatedly has stated his opinions as facts. He's not a very empathetic person, and we've been working on that. I tried telling him that not everyone thinks or feels exactly like he does, and his opinion isn't fact or gospel truth. He also doesn't really believe in therapy or mental health issues. Has severe depression, general anxiety, and borderline OCD. According to my shrink, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, and his reaction to me telling him I'm depressed was, well, I get sad sometimes too. 6. He loves his son. He and my daughter have somewhat a complicated relationship since they butt heads a lot, but he's been a way better father figure than my ex. So much more involved in her life and adopted her as an adult. Her bio dad wouldn't agree to the adoption prior, even though he wouldn't even talk to my daughter. 7. When I gave birth to our son, he was there while I was in labor and there through the entire birth process. However, once we were out of labor in the delivery area and in a private room, he just assumed he would go back home and see me sometime the next day. I had to convince him to stay with my son and I for the next couple of days in the hospital. So on the back of this, Pure Cat says, I had a burst cyst and had to be operated. My ex-husband wasn't there, yet he took me to the ER. Never stayed with me apart from visiting once a day. Even left me with his male best friend at some point. My late mum is the one who gave consent to my operation. Post-op, he couldn't even take time off to be with me and had to ask his cousin's wife to come help me around the house. We were separated within a year. You deserve better. Stock Trade Knox says, not the arsehole. You're in the hospital with internal bleeding, uncertain about whether you needed surgery, and your husband barely showed up. He didn't arrange childcare, didn't stay to support you, and when he was there, he made it all about his feelings instead of yours. That's not what a supportive partner does. It's not selfish to want your spouse to be there when you're in a medical crisis. It's basic care and concern. He didn't even reassure you or try to comfort you, which makes it worse. I'd be questioning what kind of support you can count on from him in the future too. You deserve better. With JFG says, it is policy in most hospital settings to determine if there is abuse or domestic violence. It sounds like your injury was fairly unusual. Internal bleeding could be from domestic violence. The fact that your husband was getting angrier and angrier is something that staff is going to be looking at. That's one of the reasons that they continue to ask both of you those questions. If you're a victim of domestic violence, this would have been the opportunity to get out of your situation. They would have offered you safe alternatives. It's not uncommon for victims and perpetrators to deny that violence is occurring. To the rest of the scenario, yep, this is what you have to look forward to. You do not have a caregiver there. Something happens to you, he's not going to come through for you. That is not going to change. OP comes in with an update about a week later and says, for those interested enough to want to follow up, here goes. And please, if possible, be kind. I've got a lot on my head right now. So I finally talked to my husband about my hospital stay, and it didn't go well. Admittedly, I didn't pick the best time to talk and said things in anger. I wouldn't take back anything I said, and I wasn't mean or cruel in how I delivered it. But I wish I'd picked a better time so that he was in a better mindset to receive the info. We were talking about an upcoming medical appointment for my daughter, and I said that we'd be leaving at X time the next day. His response? You're taking her. Don't you have to work? Yes, I do. So I'm going to have to call in absent because she's getting meds that won't allow her to drive home, and this is a traumatic experience, so she needs support. We already asked her bestie and her grandma. Both have uncancelable things going on. He said, well, I can take her. Opie said, really? It could take all day. You're cool with that? Him then ranting for a while about how she can just get dropped off. She's an adult and it's her problem. Opie said again, I'm totally admitting this was not the best way to bring these topics. Yes, because not only will she need a ride home, but she needs the support. Like I needed support in the hospital, but you weren't there. I had to do it alone. He said, what was I supposed to do? Just sit there. Opie says, no, you could have reassured me. You could have held my hand so I wasn't freaking out as much, or just talked to me so my thoughts didn't spiral. What if I had bled out and they needed consent to operate? You weren't there to give it. Instead, you were there 20 to 30 minutes at most and pissed every visit. Some people need emotional support. He scoffed at OP. OP said, well, at least I know what to expect for the future. I'll be going to chemo appointments alone, sitting in my hospital bed and nursing home alone and dying alone, because being there for me or anyone inconveniences you. He said a bunch of childish BS, okays and whatevers, then proceeded to act like nothing happened and immediately fall asleep, even though I have visibly red and puffy eyes from crying. Unfortunately, divorce isn't really an option for me financially or logistically. I can't uproot my kids. Yes, my daughter is 23, but with her current job and housing costs in my area, there's no way she can afford her own place. And my son has great connections in our neighborhood. My only viable plan to go to would be to move to the other side of the country because that's where my only support is. I'd have to quit my job, pull my kid out of school and move, if courts would even allow it. So until my son reaches an appropriate age, I'm staying with the expectation that I don't have a husband. I have a roommate with occasional benefits. I'm changing my will and my power of attorney to my sister, but that's the most I can do at this time. For additional clarity, my mum passed when I was 16 and my dad passed last January, though we weren't close at the time. For my biological family, I talked to one sister and my paternal aunt. Otherwise, I'm an orphan. I'm fairly close with my mother-in-law, enough to the point where she commiserates with me about my husband's behavior. He's a lot like his dad, who she divorced years ago. Lastly, for anyone who wanted a medical update, I've got an appointment with a hematologist and oncologist coming up, but it'll be a while. The worst of my bruises are finally fading and the rest are gone completely. I'm feeling better every day. If I move too fast and/or clench my abdominal muscles, I get a nasty pinch. I keep forgetting to take it easy when lifting and bending, but it's not bad. Mild enough to have an ice pack and a couple of ibuprofen take care of the worst of it. Luckily, my job has been amazing, letting me work from home, even on in-office days. They really have been super caring and supportive. So again, thank you to everyone who commented or DM'd me. It really helped me to see past my husband's callous reaction and that it wasn't an unreasonable request to ask him to stay with me. It's been an eye-opening experience, and honestly, I'm really sad after all these years. I can't count on my partner. Street Substance says the OP, in quotes, I'm staying with the expectation that I don't have a husband. I have a roommate with occasional benefits, and says, I'm so sorry, but from what you've described as his reaction and attitude towards you, that seems to be true. Maybe become closer with mother-in-law, and if hubby wants to take care of your son, ask her to be with you at the hospital. Spiritual Lemonade says, by the way, yes of course, like you know. Of course you just sit there. Last week my mum and I sat around a lobby until we're literally the last people waiting for our father, my grandfather, who was having surgery. Then we still had hours more to get him settled until we felt okay leaving him with a neighbor in a senior apartment. It's just what you do. You know that. Your spouse ought to know that. Do you have a spare bedroom you can take over? Opie says, nope, unfortunately not. I have a full house, 2 kids living at home and a roommate. Once either my daughter or roommate moves out, then I'll be able to have my own space. Marungrad says, don't forget that as soon as your son gets older, that will make 3 working adults. Between the 3 of you, I'm sure you can afford a 3-bedroom apartment or the rent on a small house. If you divorce now and your son isn't yet 18, you get child support. Don't forget to move retirement funds, life insurance, pensions, everything to your kids. And save, and an account he doesn't know about, so that the moment you find a cheap house or apartment, you have the option. Opie says that's definitely something I'm planning on. I'm going to start funneling off some funds from my paycheck directly into a separate savings account with just me on it. It'll be my emergency/bug out fund. Funny, but not funny, I know. Ugh, it's just such a sad situation. When I saw that comment, what was I supposed to do? Just sit there? It's like, yes, mate, that's exactly what you should be doing, supporting your spouse of 18 years. Just be present while they're scared and vulnerable, like she would do for you. And I really do hope that OP gets herself out of that situation at some point in the future and does find some peace. I initially thought, could she just move in with the mother-in-law with the kids? I don't know how realistic that is though. And I really hope that OP's hematologist appointment goes well and that her mother-in-law continues to be some sort of source of support for her. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? What would you say to OP? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs. Brush my teeth up, watch my face. Throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. AB,